Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church. And I'm here today to talk some more about this fellow named David and his life and the words and the actions that he left for so many people. And David was the greatest king there ever was in the nation of Israel, but he was also a human being. And the reason I've been sharing with him is because we can learn from both his his joys and his accomplishments. We can also learn from his failures. And today I want to read about the biggest failure. Huge, as a matter of fact. It comes in 2 Samuel chapter 11. And I'll read a few verses here and set the stage for what I want to say. In the spring of the year, when kings normally go out to war, David sent Joab and the Israeli army to fight the Ammonites. They destroyed the Ammonite army and laid siege to the city of Ribboth. However, David stayed behind in Jerusalem. Late one afternoon, after his midday rest, David got out of bed and was walking on the roof of the palace. As he looked out over the city, he noticed a woman of unusual beauty taking a bath. He sent someone out to find out who she was and was told she is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Then David sent messengers to get her, and when she came to the palace, he slept with her. Then after that, she returned home. Later, when Bathsheba discovered she was pregnant, she sent David a message saying, I'm pregnant. Well, let's stop here for a minute. David, the king of England, the king of Israel, the greatest in the history of the country, still today is considered that. He goes out to war. Evidently, this is what they did in the spring. I don't know why. Well, maybe they couldn't do it in the wintertime, but there was a lot of wars, a lot of fighting, a lot of hatred. Still is in this part of the world. And maybe it's just rooted in the same old garbage. But in any case, he sends his armies out to fight. But this time, which would be somewhat unusual, not not exceptional, but unusual, he doesn't go with the armies, he stays home. So the story tells us that one day after his midday rest, he's up on the roof looking around the city. Well, being on the roof may sound a little strange to you and me, but houses in this place, in this day and age, had flat roofs. In fact, one of the requirements of Leviticus was that you had a fence around the edge of the roof so people couldn't fall off. I doubt anybody's ever checked to see if you have a fence on the edge of your roof. But nevertheless, he's up there looking around. I'm guessing he's imagining and admiring how great the city is and how much he's been able to accomplish and just how wonderful the world is. And in the process of looking around, he sees this lady. And apparently she was gorgeous. And she's taking a bath. Where is she taking a bath? On her roof. That's the best place to be because that's where you're out of sight. Except in David's case, he's up above and he sees her. And he asks who she is. And he gets his folks to bring her to the palace. Now, we don't know what happened here. I'm guessing the truth of the matter is David seduced her. It says she was married to Uriah the Hittite, and there's no indication that her marriage was in trouble, but he sleeps with her. And then shortly after that, he gets a notice that she's pregnant. Now, what should David have done? Acknowledge his failures? Um, tried to make amends by, I don't know, covering expenses or lavishing gifts or something. But he didn't do any of that. Let's see what he does. Turn into verse 14. David wrote a letter to Joab and gave it to Uriah to deliver. The letter instructed Joab, station Uriah on the front lines where the battle is the fiercest. then pull back so he will be killed. So Joab assigned Uriah to a spot close to the wall where they knew the enemy's strongest soldiers were, and they came out and they killed him, along with some others. Well, what I didn't read in between is that David's strategy in doing this horrible thing was not to admit it, not to be honest, it was to cover it up. The first thing he tried to do was get Uriah to come home and sleep with Bathsheba so he, everybody would think it was his baby. And in those days, they didn't know much about procreation as you and I know about it. And so that would have worked, except Uriah, being a really honest man, said that I shouldn't do that. If my soldiers aren't doing it, I shouldn't do it. And so he doesn't sleep with her. So then David has to come up with another plan. And finally, he comes up with this plan. He sends Uriah to the front line and essentially abandons him there, and he gets killed. Now, what's David doing? Rather than admit his mistake, he's covering up. He's trying to say something that isn't true so that he won't have to confess his behavior. Now, if you think that's unusual, let me quickly go back to 1 Samuel and Saul. And it says here, the Lord said to Samuel, I'm sorry that I ever made Saul king, for he has not been loyal to me and has refused to obey my command. God tells Samuel, Saul's a mistake. And then it goes on down this particular incident where they went out and captured a bunch of animals, and they were supposed to kill all of them. Samuel says, what's all this sound of animals I hear? Here's Saul's reason. That's true. The army spared the rest of the sheep, the goats, and the cattle. Saul admitted they were supposed to kill all of them. But we're going to sacrifice them to the Lord your God. We've destroyed everything else. He's making excuses. He's doing the same thing that David does here. Somehow or another, the idea is God's not going to notice. And you know, you and I make mistakes. Maybe not as big as these two. But when we make a mistake, the options are few. Admit it, ask forgiveness, or try to cover it up. Saul, and then, as we just read, David, try to cover it up. Maybe that's your strategy, or maybe it has been. It won't work. Why won't it work? Well, think about it. Who are you covering up from? It's not like you're covering up from your best friend or your mom or dad or your neighbor. We're talking about covering up from God. And somehow, maybe he won't notice. Now, I'm not suggesting here that God's out to get you and trying to watch everything you do. I'm just saying that God will offer forgiveness if we will offer it to him, if we will confess where we've messed up. You want to live a great life? Learn how to admit you were wrong. Learn how to say, I'm sorry. Learn how to say, hey, God, I messed it up. Please forgive me. And then take the consequences of what you did. Boy, I wish a lot of people in this world today would do that, but I'm being way too optimistic. So you think about this. What do you do when you make a mistake? What is the right thing to do? Well, I'm going to suggest that the right thing is not what David did or what Saul did earlier. Think about it. Thanks for listening today. If you have a need or a concern, let us know. We'll do whatever we can as fast as we can to help meet your need. God bless you. Have a great weekend. I'll be back Monday and talk some more about this God, David.